Hello, everybody. This is Jim Ransom with another edition of Morning Jim Poetry. October 22nd, 2022. There are a lot of twos in today's title. If I were a superstitious guy, I'd be wondering if it were good luck or bad. Seems like 7 is considered a more auspicious number, but I guess we have to take all that in stride. I'm going to focus on poems today by poets who are currently publishing. Recall that last week I read some poems by Ruth Moss, and I'm going to come back to her today, but I'm also going to have poems by Russell Edson, Kim Dower, and Mary Karr. Those are 3 additional currently writing poems, and one of my own. I'm still around, still writing. If you're no fan of modern poetry, this may not be the program for you. But stick around. I think you'll find something to like. And I'm not a person who goes in for the weird, marginal poetry written half in Navajo and half in English and all that kind of thing. So now, let's move on to Russell Edson, who's been a poet now for quite a while, and he's pretty well known in poetry circles, but that doesn't necessarily mean the general public. But he's known as a kind of writer of surrealistic verse. And I think this poem is a good example of that. It's called Let Us Consider by Russell Edson. Let us consider the farmer who makes his straw hat his sweetheart, or the old woman who makes a floor lamp her son, or the young woman who has set herself the task of scraping her shadow off a wall. Yeah. Let us consider the old woman who wore smoked cows' tongues for shoes and walked a meadow gathering cowchips in her apron, or a mirror grown dark with age that was given to a blind man who spent his nights looking into it, which saddened his mother, that her son should be so lost in vanity. Let us consider the man who fried roses for his dinner, whose kitchen smelled like a burning rose garden, or the man who disguised himself as a moth and ate his own overcoat, and for dessert served himself a chilled fedora. I think the reputation for surrealism that Russell Edson has acquired is certainly deserved. And the other thing about his poetry is that he's been a leader in the movement, not always reciprocated by other poets, including me, to write poems in a sort of prose format rather than in typical poetic stanzas. So, we have just considered a poet who's maybe on the cutting edge of things we don't like, but that's kind of the way it is with poetry. Next, I have a poem by a poet named Kim Dower. She's a lady who has written this poem called Bottled Water. I go to the corner liquor store for a bottle of water. Middle of a hectic day. Must get out of the office. Stop making decisions. Quit obsessing. Does my blue skirt clash with my hot pink flats? Should I get my mother a caregiver or just put her in a home and I pull open the glass refrigerator door and am confronted by brands. Arrowhead, Glitter Geyser, Deer Park, Spring, Summer, Winter Water, and clearly the bosses of bottled water, Real Water, and Smart Water. How different will they taste? If I drink Smart Water, will I raise my IQ but be less authentic? If I choose Real Water, will I no longer deny the truth, but will I attract confused, needy people who will take advantage of my realness by dumping their problems on me? And will I be too stupid to help them sort through their murky dilemmas? I take no chances. I buy them both. Sparkling, smart, purified, real. Drain both bottles. Look around to see if anyone is watching. I'm now brilliantly hydrated, both real and smart. My insides bubble with compassion and intelligence. As I walk the streets with a new swagger, knowing the world is mine. I really liked that poem because it doesn't necessarily start as a humorous poem, but it ends up that way, doesn't it? It's entertaining and makes us think about why we do the things we do. Yeah, Bottled Water by Mary Karr. And I've read by Kim Dower, and I've read some of her other poems. And she's quite varied and quite a good poet. Now, next is a kind of eerie poem by Mary Karr, who's another very busy young woman poet. You can call it a pre-Halloween poem. You'll have to decide that for yourself. It's called Field of Skulls. Stare hard enough at the fabric of night, and if you're predisposed to dark, let's say the window you've picked is a black postage stamp you spend hours at, sleepless, drinking gin after the I Love Lucy reruns have gone off. Stare like your eyes have force, and behind any night's taut scrim will come the forms you expect, pressing from the other side for you. A field of skulls, angled at jaws and eye sockets, a zillion scooped-out crania. They're plain once you think to look. You know such fields exist, for criminals roam your every block, and even history lists monsters like Adolf and Uncle Joe, who stalk the Earth's orb, plus minor baby eaters unidentified, probably in your very midst. Perhaps that disgruntled mail clerk from your job has already scratched your name on a bullet. That's him rustling in the azaleas. You caress the thought, for it proves there's no better spot for you than here, on your square yard of chintz sofa, hearing the bad news pipe steady from your head. The night is black. You stare and furious stare, confident there are no gods out there. In this way, you're blind to your own eye's intricate machine, and to the light it sees by, to the luck of birth and all your remembered loves. If the skulls are there, let's say they do press toward you against night's grim, could they not stare with slack-jawed envy at the fine flesh that covers your scalp, the numbered hairs, at the force your hands hold. Well, that's a poem that has many interpretations. I like that poem because it's got a very fascinating vocabulary, and it's one in which the words mean different things than they usually do. I like this poem. Yeah, the skulls looking in the window of your eyes will envy your fine flesh, your hair, and the force your hands hold. I think that's the message of the poem, and I kind of like it. I kind of like that. Okay, now, let's see here. Getting my paperwork organized. Here's a poem. You remember last week we had poems from Ruth Moss's new book. Puzzled. And she sort of demonstrates that she's puzzled about a lot of things in life. And maybe one of them is expressed on this in this next poem from the book. It's called Coach. 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 Who runs the draft and sends us in the game? Life or game the same, and most don't care. Who whacks our butts while we exhale a prayer? Please let my time be worthy of acclaim. The snap, a jolt of bulky aberrations. We fumble as they slam us like a truck and can't recover. Maybe just our luck, or maybe our neurotic expectations. We need someone to blame for all the maddening, impersonal yet personal attacks, severe enough to stop us in our tracks, as well as for the extra padding. We bounce and boogie to the marching band, forgetting there will be a final score. Who failed to diagram all this before? Who let this game of life get out of hand? That's a poem that has a lot of implications to it, I think. I like the poem, and it's got very clever rhyming. Think about the last stanza. We bounce and boogie to the marching band, forgetting there will be a final score. Who failed to diagram all this before? Who let this game of life get out of hand? In other words, the first line of each stanza rhymes with the last line, and the two internal lines of the stanza are a couplet. It's a very cleverly done poem. I'm sure she worked at it quite a bit. And I really like it. I like poems that are well crafted and thoughtfully crafted. So that's another poem you can look for when you get your book Puzzled, which I hope you will order. Look it up on the internet. You'll find it there. I'm not taking orders on this show. Finally, here's a poem I wrote 2 years ago during the COVID scare. It's called Concerning Beauty. There's a new focus. And then there's a quote as an epigram, a quote from the authorities that were guiding our lives at that time. It is strongly recommended that masks be worn around all others. I'm looking at you in a new way. Your eyes, your lashes, and your brows, the lines on your forehead when you laugh, replace the flare of your nostrils and the curl of your lip. I see you have cut a slit in your mask so you can sip your coffee. Is there lipstick on your cup? I need to see if it's really you here with me. My eyes are beset, reset. My brain is reprogrammed. My mind repaints your full face, your smile, the wrinkles of your eyes, and the color of your hair. Curls or waves are now my focus. I find I must recongregate decades of reading the human face. We are flesh. We are bone. It's only face to face. We aren't alone. Face to face with masks on. No, we're not alone. Okay, concerning beauty, here's a new focus. That's the poem. So, I hope you've all had a chance to enjoy some of the new poetry that's out there nowadays. Poets, I might say, are a dime a dozen, but they usually have a lot of academic focus. So they're not out wandering around the streets. In other words, you can't throw them a quarter, well, it would be $1 now, and ask them to read their latest iteration of I Love You Very Much. No, they're more confined. They're more confined than almost anything else in society. But some of us really like poetry, and even poets are likable people at times. I do like Ruth Moss. She's a very nice person. But she tells me she's a Buddhist. Maybe that accounts for it. I don't know. I'm a Christian, and I know a lot of Christians that are not very nice, and I may be one of them. Anyway, this is Morning Gym Poetry, October 22nd, 2022. I'm happy you joined us today, and I hope you'll come back next week when we'll travel back to earlier days of poetry. I can't say any more than that about it right now, but I think you'll like it. Bye now.